Oh, hey, I'm just trying to act nonchalant while operating the camera at the same time. Do you remember the first movie you ever saw? I'm thinking, probably not. I bet you were 2 or 3 years old when your parents plopped you in front of the television, hoping that'd shut you up for a couple hours and give them some peace and quiet. Yeah, I'm in the same boat too. I'll probably never know for sure what the first movie I saw was. But maybe I can remember what was the first movie I saw in theaters. That might have stuck in my head a bit more clearly, you know? You could ask your mom and dad. They might know. I asked my mom and dad. They don't know. I'm going to have to figure this out for myself, which can be difficult. Trying to remember things that happened that long ago, you know, memories tend to fade and blur into one another. So I figure what I probably need are some, visual aids. What we have here is a timeline of movies that were released in theaters. Going this way, we're going into the future, and which was a bit difficult, trying to imagine every movie that was ever going to be released. I mean, that's pretty much infinite, so took a while. Going this way along the wall, we're going back in time, which wasn't nearly as difficult, as there's only about 100 years of history before movies were invented. But what do I remember for sure seeing in theaters? Well, of course, there's plenty of stuff in the 80s. Those were my formative years, back when Disney used to put dicks on their poster. Those were good days. And when Back to the Future was about a modern-day kid going back in time. And of course, we had Die Hard and Indiana Jones redefining the action genre. And Zucker Abrams Prof probably had their best decade ever. And of course, there's this milestone, Star Wars. Back when I was totally reliant on my parents to take me to and pay for my movies. This was the only one they took me to see twice. Probably because I pestered them a lot. But what's weird is how many clear memories I have from '77. I remember seeing Close Encounters of the Third Kind in theaters, and also Airport 77. I'm pretty sure that came out in '77. It was the first movie I saw where people died realistically on camera, and it kind of freaked me out. When all the people are dropping like flies at the end of the movie, my parents probably figured this is a bit too intense for me, so we left early, which means I never saw anybody get out alive. I figured they all died. Way to make things worse, Mom and Dad. Jeez. But if you just go 1 year before that, 76, 75, things get a little blurry. I'm pretty sure I saw Freaky Friday in theaters, and also the Apple Dumpling Gang. Or was I thinking that was the Apple Dumpling Gang Rides Again, which came out after Star Wars? I also remember seeing Escape to Witch Mountain in theaters. Or was I getting that confused with Return from Witch Mountain? You know, sequels aren't new, folks. So things were getting a little complicated in this area. And the ironic thing is what was making it complicated was the same thing that's making things complicated for Star Wars fans today. And that, of course, is Disney. When I started watching this weekly anthology show in the early 70s, it had already been on the air for 20 years. Disney has been forever, it is now forever, and will forever be forever. Anyway, my parents would turn the television towards the kitchen so my brother and I could watch while we ate dinner. Most episodes were original content, but quite often they would show movies that came out in theaters a few years earlier. So when I'm trying to remember what was the first movie I ever saw, I'm having difficulty clearly remembering if I saw it on TV or in theaters. Now, you would think there's a big enough difference between seeing it on a black and white TV across the room versus seeing it in theaters on the big screen in color that the distinction would be clear in my memory. But not so much. For example, I thought I saw The Love Bug, the first Herbie movie in theaters, but it came out before I was born, so I guess not. I probably saw it on The Wonderful World of Disney in 1979. Well, at least I could easily eliminate that from the list of possibilities, but other movies are a bit more difficult. Pretty sure I remember waiting in line to see the Apple Dumpling Gang in 1975, but it was shown on The Wonderful World of Disney in 1976, so maybe that's what I'm remembering. Did I see it in theaters or not? We're gonna have to dig deeper to the analyst chamber. The analysis chamber. Okay, Let's bring up a list of the oldest movies I can remember in release date order. Now, we'll start with Star Wars in 1977 and work our way backwards, see how far we can get. Now, two movies I remember seeing in 1976 are Freaky Friday and No Deposit, No Return. Now, I don't know anybody else who remembers No Deposit, No Return, but the title always stuck in my head as a kid because I had to ask somebody what it meant. And now I realize that kids these days may not know what it means either. Well, the thing is, before we had our modern recycling programs, a lot of drink manufacturers, mostly pop and beer, that sold their beverages in glass bottles, would encourage people to return the bottles to the store by charging an extra 5 cents on top of the cost of the drink. This was called the deposit, and this was called money when I was a kid. You pay your extra 5 cents, you get your drink, you drink it, you return the bottle, you get your 5 cents back, and you get to keep it. And then the manufacturer would collect their bottles from the store and reuse them. Not recycle them, wash them, clean them, and actually reuse the same bottle. But not every manufacturer had one of these programs. In those cases, they would often emboss right on the bottle the phrase, "No deposit, no return." You learn something new and useless every day. But not every manufacturer used the exact phrase. For example, this Coke bottle here decided to go with non-refillable. And this Sprite bottle says, "Money back bottle." And the closest I could find to the real phrase was this Mountain Dew bottle, which says, "No deposit." So, was this a movie about recycling? No, actually, I'm not sure what the title had to do with the movie. It's about two rich kids during the Easter vacation. Their single mother's tied up on a business trip in Hong Kong, so they're sent to spend the weekend with their grandfather, played by David Niven.
Grandfather Osborne's. I'd rather go to jail first.
It's only for Easter vacation.
Now, they don't really like him, so they jump planes and try to catch a flight to Hong Kong, but they don't have any money for the tickets. Luckily, they run into a couple of safecrackers played by Darren McGavin and Don Knotts. They convince the safecrackers to pose as kidnappers to get a ransom from Grandpa so they get their tickets to Hong Kong. And to make it worth their while, some of the ransom money will be used to pay off debts that the safecrackers have incurred to the mob. Okay, let's watch this movie and see if I remember anything about it. Actually, if I gotta do this with all the movies, this could take a while. But I know how to speed this up. I got this idea from some other movie. All right. Load me up with no deposit, no return. Oh! Oh!
Bye, Tracy. Have fun. You too. Where you going?
Let's see if this movie rings any bells.
Don't know. Someplace.
Nothing yet? No. Wait, I remember this. It was the first time I ever saw the ketchup bottle gag. I remember telling somebody in school how hilarious it was. I guess to see everything for the first time at some time. Now this room looks familiar. I remember all the license plates on the walls. Yeah, the police lights on the conveyor belt gag, I remember that. These types of wacky car stunts were real popular in the 70s. I think they stopped doing them around 1980 after the Blues Brothers. I mean, who can top that movie?
We're even.
Well, I guess that's that. So when was this movie broadcasted on the wonderful world of Disney? 1982, huh? Well, that's 1 year before Return of the Jedi came out. So I was 12 years old at the time, probably wasn't watching this kiddie stuff anymore. What with being all wrapped up in the rapture that was the original trilogy. So comfy. Also, I'm assuming that the ketchup bottle gag wasn't new to me when I was 12 years old because that would be sad. So I'm very confident I can say I saw this movie in theaters when it came out. And when I say theaters, I'm also including drive-in theaters. A lot of the movies I saw when I was a kid were at the drive-in theater at my parents' cottage. This is it! Yeah. But earlier that year, Freaky Friday came out. And I'm not talking about the Lindsay Lohan version, I'm talking about the Jodie Foster version. You know what? Just load me up with all of them and I'll compare them. Wait, what's this? There's a musical version? When did that come out? 2018. I've never heard of it. Look it up on IMDb and get me the highest rated comment.
That was the worst movie ever. I would rather shove that hourglass up my butthole than watch that again. The singing and songs were horrible. It felt like my ears were bleeding. If you are reading this, do not watch that movie.
Ooh, I do not want that in my brain. Cancel that. All right, just give me the original too. There's a 1995 Shelley Long made-for-TV version.
That'd be nice to have her life.
How many times did they remake this movie? All right, give me that one too. Oh, can't find a copy of it. Oh, thank God. All right, just 1976, 2003. Now, I don't think I've seen a 2003 version, but what I remember from the 1976 is a scene with a washing machine with too many suds in it overflowing, but that's an old gag. That could be any number of movies. But I also remember a cop car going through a tunnel that becomes triangular at one end, and the cop car comes out squeezed into a triangle. So let's see if this memory's accurate. Load me up with Freaky Friday. At least it works. Hey, I forgot John Astin's in this movie. I love John Astin. He's the father of Samwise Gamgee.
I'll take care of the rest.
Now in this version, mother and daughter just make the same wish at the same time. In the 2003 version, it's fortune cookies that make them swap bodies.
Honey?
In the 2018 version, I think I read something about hourglasses stuck up their asses, but I'm not going to bother to find out.
See if you can find my matching socks.
Well, there's the soap sud scene. You know, I think the mom, Barbara Harris, does a pretty good job in the original.
Gin?
That's the wrong bag.
Turkey Stetson.
Ooh, great.
All right, we're getting near the end here, and I'm not sure how they're going to fit a car chase into this movie. Oh, nope, I'm wrong. It's the 1970s. There's always a car chase at the end. And there you go, triangular car. Memories confirmed. You know what? I think the 2003 version does everything a remake should. It keeps the original concept and tone intact while updating it technically and socially for modern audiences. It might be a soulless cash grab, but it doesn't feel like one. The only thing missing is a wacky car chase at the end. I really think we need to bring these back. Alright, the 1976 movie was broadcasted on The Wonderful World of Disney in 1982, and I'm getting tired of saying Wonderful World of Disney all the time, so I'm just going to refer to it as WAD from now on. So, as I said, don't think I was still watching WAD anymore in 1982, so this is a definite saw it in theaters. Moving on to 1975, I think I remember waiting in line to see the Apple Dumpling Gang, but I might be getting it confused with the sequel, The Apple Dumpling Gang Rides Again. Alright, get me both of those movies. You know what? Load me up with all the movies on my list, all at once. Okay, here we go. Ow! 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 Well, the first movie stars Bill Bixby, and holy shit. Is it just me, or does he look a hell of a lot like Hugh Jackman? I mean, get me a picture of Hugh Jackman. Now, put some mutton chops on Bill and put a cigar in his mouth. Right? Wow! Okay, well, anyway. He plays the character of Donovan, who ends up having to look after 3 orphan children who end up discovering a big nugget in an abandoned gold mine, and now everybody wants to adopt them. The nugget is placed in a local bank safe, and 2 small-time thieves played by Tim Conway and Don Knotts try to steal it. And, oh, wait a minute. I remember this part.
How'd you get up there?
Never mind how I got up here. You kids should be in bed now. Get out of here.
I don't remember anything else from this movie, but I do remember this, so I have seen it. I'm not getting it confused with the Apple Dumpling Gang Rides Again, but let's take a quick look at that movie. The only returning characters are Don Knotts and Tim Conway. They accidentally get enlisted in the army and wacky shenanigans ensue. But no, I don't remember anything else from this movie. Pretty sure I haven't seen it. Well, it wasn't in the running anyway. It came out after Star Wars. But back to the first film. It was broadcasted on WAD in 1976. I'm pretty sure I saw it in theaters in 1975, but it's possible I saw it on TV in 1976. My memories have a bit of a black and white 4x3-ish tinge to them, so we'll just have to put a question mark on this one and keep moving. Earlier in 1975 was Escape to Witch Mountain. I remember the basic plot about 2 alien kids who crash landed on Earth trying to get to a rendezvous point on Witch Mountain where their people are supposed to pick them up, and there was a scene where a coat rack attacked somebody. That's about all I remember. Nope, wait. This room looks familiar. It's an awesome room for 70s kids. Even has a soda fountain. Hey, it's Eddie Albert. You kids all remember Eddie Albert, right? Ba-dum-ba-dum-ba-ba-ba, ba-dum-ba-dum-ba, but I know you don't. Oh, hey, look. Coat rack attacking somebody. Memory confirmed. When did this movie broadcast on WAD? 1980, huh? I'm pretty sure I saw it in theaters, but maybe I did see it on TV. Put that on hold for a second. Let's take a look at the sequel, Return to Witch Mountain. Uncle Jesse returns the kids to Earth for a vacation, and Tony is kidnapped by Christopher Lee and Betty Davis. Okay. Christopher Lee has invented a way to remotely control people. When he sees that Tony is telekinetic, he wants to control him so that he can,
I could become one of the most influential men in the world.
gain influence. It's a little vague. And Betty Davis is financing him because she,
Sure, I gamble. I want some money fast.
she likes to gamble. This is some of the strangest villain motivation I've ever seen. Tia is trying to find her brother and teams up with a literal gang of 8-year-olds who lament that they aren't strong enough to stand up to that gang of 10-year-olds that bullies them all the time. Now, these 8-year-olds live in an abandoned building and there's no parents to be seen anywhere. Was it really that bad in Pasadena in 1978? This is a weird film. The bad guys try to use Tony to steal some gold from a museum. That doesn't work, so they take control of the plutonium processing plant and hold the city at ransom, or else they're going to cause a meltdown and a nuclear explosion. Now, that's not how plutonium refining works, but even if it did, they're in the same building, and that would kill them too. These are the worst villains ever. When did this come out on WAD? Never. Actually, that helps. If the second one was never broadcasted on WAD, that means I must have seen it in theaters in 1978. But I remember when watching it that I thought that Tony, played by Ike Eisenman, looked a whole lot older in this one because he does. So if I didn't see the first one in 1975 in theaters, then I must have seen it on TV in 1980. After the second one, I would have seen the movies out of order. And I would have been wondering, why does Ike look so much younger in the second movie I saw? So that means I must have seen them in the right order, and therefore I must have seen the first one in theaters in 1975. Put a check mark on it! As for 2009's Race to Witch Mountain, it's everything a remake shouldn't be. Though, technically it's a sequel. The alien kids have different names than the original, so I guess this is something that happens to people from their advanced civilization a lot. Problem is, it has virtually zero plot. The kids crash land on Earth, hire Dwayne Johnson's cab, and ask him to take them to Witch Mountain. That's basically it. Oh, with an alien Terminator pursuing them for good measure. There was more to the story in the original. The kids were too young to remember how they got to Earth and were being raised in an Earth orphanage. They knew they were not normal compared to other kids because of their powers, but they were not aware that they were aliens at first, so that's something that's discovered along the way. The 2009 version has none of this. It's literally just a race from start to end. Well, modern kids might like it more because of all the vroom vroom pew pew, but it is a soulless cash grab. At least the original kids get cameos. And there's this scene where 2 stormtroopers get in Johnson's cab. Is this foreshadowing of Disney's acquisition of Lucasfilm? I'll let the conspiracy nuts figure it out. But there is another movie, even earlier in 1975, that I still remember. The Strongest Man in the World, starring Kurt Russell, the third film in the Dexter Riley trilogy. The first 2 films, The Computer Wore Tennis Shoes and Now You See 'Em, Now You Don't, came out in 1969 and 1972 respectively. Now, I'm pretty sure I didn't see these movies in theaters because the first one came out before I was even born, and I was only 2 years old when the second one came out, but I do remember seeing these movies, so we'll get back to them. Now, in The Strongest Man in the World, Dexter Riley, played by Kurt Russell, accidentally invents a super strength serum, and while we're on the subject, he accidentally invents an invisibility spray, and Now You See Him, Now You Don't, and he accidentally zaps a computer database into his brain, and the computer wore tennis shoes, and holy shit! Do you see this? Zoom in. No, not on his nose. Sorry, I guess I didn't specify. His ear, please. Look at the size of his earlobes. Why have I never noticed this before? That's why he always rocks the mullet, to hide his freakish Dumbo ears. Anyway, I remember how the movie ends where he puts some of the serum in a car so he can go faster, and he stops the car by putting his feet through the floor. And spoilers, he lifts a massive amount of weight to win a weightlifting competition for his school. But I also remember being amazed by how the barbell bends. I had no idea how that could have been faked. I figured he must be lifting a massive amount of weight or the bar wouldn't be bending like that. And then he drops it and it goes right through the floor. Well, that just proved it. There was no way that could have been faked, or so my 5-year-old brain thought. But when did this come out on Quad? 1977. That could be a problem. I'm pretty sure I remember seeing it in color, which would mean I saw it in theaters, but my memory's a bit fuzzy, you know? I think I'll use one of my lifelines and give my brother a call. He's a few years older than me, so his memory might be a bit better about this. Yo, Brian. Yeah, I was just trying to remember. What was the first movie I ever saw? I mean, you were probably there with me. Was it The Strongest Man in the World? Uh-huh. Yeah? Yeah, his earlobes. You noticed that? No, I never did. Yeah. Yeah, okay. Yeah, me too. Yeah. Okay, thanks. His memory's a bit fuzzy too, but he's pretty sure we saw it in color. The only problem is we did eventually get a color television, and we put it in the basement, so that helps compartmentalize my memories. If I saw something in the basement, then it must have been in color. So when did we get the color TV? If we didn't get the color TV until after 1977, when The Strongest Man in the World was broadcasted on WAD, then we couldn't have seen it in color at home. We must have seen it in color in theaters in 1975. So I asked my parents, when did we get the color television? They don't remember. But what I remember is sitting right here on this couch and seeing a commercial for Star Wars on the color television. And the reason the commercial sticks in my mind so clearly is that I did not realize it was a commercial. It started with just the first shot of the film. There was no cutting, no voiceover like a commercial. I just thought Star Wars was playing on TV. And I'm like, oh my god, Star Wars, it's on TV. I don't know why, but there it is. Oh goody, I get to see Star Wars again. And then it said something like, this is how it all began. Go see it again in theaters. Damn it, I thought I was gonna see Star Wars again. Poopy. Since Star Wars came out in 1977, maybe we already had our color television when The Strongest Man in the World was broadcasted on WAD that same year. But I remember there was a show my friends and I used to watch called Battle of the Planets, and we all had black and white TVs when that show started in 1978. It was a Japanese anime made in 1972, but when Star Wars exploded in 77, some American producers said, we need to jump on the space battle stuff because the kids seem to love it. And thus was the impetus to convert Science Ninja Team Gotchaman into
Battle of the Planet.
We were amongst the first of my friends to get a color television. I remember inviting them over to watch Battle of the Planets in color for the first time, and they were surprised by what color each character was. Oh, Tiny's green, Mark is blue, blah 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 blah. So, if we got our color television in 1978, how was it that I was able to see commercials for Star Wars on it, which came out the previous year? Well, as some of you may know, Star Wars was so awesome that it played in theaters for well over a year. So it makes perfect sense that I could still be seeing commercials for it in 1978. So there you go. What was I trying to prove again? Oh yeah, we got our color television in 1978 after The Strongest Man in the World was broadcasted on WAD. So remembering it in color means we must have seen it in theaters when it originally came out in 1975, and check it off! I checked a list of movies that were released in 1974, and I don't remember seeing any of them in theaters. I went back and checked 73, 72 just in case, but nothing was ringing any bells, so that's probably it. The first movie I ever saw in theaters / drive-ins was The Strongest Man in the World in 1975 when I was 5 years old. But why stop there? There's some other movies that are even older than that I remember. Must have seen them on WAD. For example, the movie titled The $1 Million Duck sticks in my head for some reason, and upon rewatching it recently, there were some scenes I remembered. Now, it was broadcasted in 1974 when I was just 4 years old, but I don't think it's a big stretch of the imagination to say I can remember something from when I was that age. But what about those other Dexter Riley films? I said I'd get back to them. Well, the second one was broadcasted in 1975. Again, no big stretch of the imagination to say I can remember something from when I was 5. I remember lots of things from when I was 5. But the first movie was broadcasted in 1972 when I was just 2 years old. Now, that seems to be pushing it, but honestly, the oldest memories I can confirm are from when I was just 2 years old. They're of this push toy helicopter I got on my second birthday. But maybe I'm remembering being older and looking back at these younger photographs and forming a sort of retroactive false memory about it, but I don't know what port I was sailing out of, but I do remember pushing the toy down the hallway and the blades would counter-rotate, something you don't get from just looking at the photograph. I also remember the blades breaking off one at a time until it wasn't a helicopter anymore. I was pretty tough on toys. There's no picture of me at 3 years old with this one. But the weird thing is, my strongest and most plentiful memories of this series are from the first one. And claiming that my clearest memories are from when I was just 2 years old seems to be stretching incredulity. This is when I realized there's been a big monkey wrench thrown to this whole procedure, and that is the drive-in theater itself. You see, drive-ins are traditionally a double feature affair, and in the case of the drive-in at my parents' cottage, a quadruple feature affair on long holiday weekends. Now the problem with that is that the first film is usually a first-run movie, meaning it's the new one that just came out recently. But the second, third, or fourth film are second-run movies, meaning that they're older. All this time I've been operating under the assumption that if I remember seeing a movie at the drive-in, I saw it the year it came out. But I remember seeing Close Encounters of the Third Kind in this very drive-in, But it came out in November of 1977. That's winter in these parts. We didn't go to the cottage in the winter, and nobody went to drive-ins in the winter, so I probably saw it in the spring or summer of '78. Suffice to say that just because I remember seeing a movie at the drive-in is no guarantee that I actually saw it the year it was released. But I'm going to make a case for The Strongest Man based on the memories, or actually the very few memories I have of the second film in the series, Now You See 'Em, Now You Don't. Now, the only scene I remember from this movie is this one. And that memory is actually from outside the car at the drive-in. I was going to the washroom to take a whiz and trying to watch the movie at the same time, and that's why it sticks in my head. But why is this the only scene I remember from this movie? Well, if you take into account how the drive-in tended to program its films, then it all starts to fall into place. If this was a long quadruple-featured holiday weekend in the summer of 1975, then the third film in the trilogy, The Strongest Man in the World, would have been the new one, and thus shown first. And I do remember how this movie ended, which means I was awake. Now, assuming that the other two movies were shown in their original release order, then the first movie, The Computer Wore Tennis Shoes, would have been the second film shown. That is the one I have the strongest and most plentiful memories from, but they're all from the first half of the movie. I probably fell asleep halfway through because 1.5 movies into a quadruple feature was past my bedtime. Now, my parents never stuck around to the end of the third film, probably because 2.5 movies into a quadruple feature was past their bedtime. They would sometimes watch the third film, but never all of it, because they're not a completionist, like I am. So, if the second film in the trilogy, Now You See 'Em, Now You Don't, was the third film shown, then I know for sure we wouldn't have seen the whole thing. I was probably asleep at the start of it, woke up when my parents were getting ready to leave, and then said I gotta go pee, and then saw this part of the movie while I was going to go pee, and then we packed up and went home. The parts of these movies that I do and don't remember mesh with this scenario so well, it gives me the confidence to say, yeah, for sure. The first movie I ever saw in theaters or drive-ins was The Strongest Man in the World when I was 5 years old. Well, I hope that was worth your time. I mean, it was pretty self-indulgent for me, but I hope it gets you thinking about the first movie you ever saw. Was that an easy question for you to answer, or was it a convoluted cross-referencing exercise like it was for me? Anyway, I guess we can shut it down. All right, shut it down. If anybody's listening, computer? You might be wondering why I didn't mention home video in any of my reminiscings. Well, home video was invented in the 70s, but it was so new and expensive at the time that for all intents and purposes, nobody had it. It wasn't really widespread until the mid-80s. So, if you saw a movie in the 70s, you pretty much had to see it in theaters when it was released, or be sitting in front of a television the exact moment it was being broadcasted, or you missed it. You kids got it so easy these days. I just realized I didn't really review those movies, did I? Did you come here for reviews? Well, honestly, you don't need to see any of them. They're all middle-of-the-road Disney family films from the 70s, a period some people refer to as the dark days of Disney. But if you grew up with them as part of your childhood, you could probably have some fun revisiting them for nostalgia's sake. I know I did. If you got 5-year-old kids of your own, they'll probably enjoy them because kids that age have horrible taste in movies. I know I did. If you're somewhere between the two, then you're probably not going to get much out of them. But the real takeaway from all of this is that every movie I could remember before Star Wars was a Disney film. Disney. They own all of our childhoods. There used to be a playground here in front of the screen, just like in Greece. And they're even playing the same Let's All Go to the Lobby movie on the screen. Grease is a very accurate film.